Mr Chairman, Mr Croupier, members of Dalry Burns Club and honoured guests. Having been brought up in Dalry and lived at Borston, Lynn, Drakemire and Toffs, kind of married to the town, I will speak of something old, something new, something borrowed and something blue. A living legend to most of us, the Reverend Douglas Lamb in 1998 wrote The Dim Beginnings, and of a Miles Christie, or perhaps a monk from Kilwinning, coming to Dalry and setting up the first church down the Lynn. Well, like me, a number of folks here tonight were brought up there. What a job he had. Scottish churches list 3 sites for pre-1604 churches. One at Blair and one Douglas referred to at Kilcush, which is where the new bypass goes over the River Garnock. The railway bridge that goes over the path up to the Blair is called the Kilcush Bridge. The other possible site for this was the ex-East Chapel at Hill End, and that closed in 1604 when the new church was built on the site of the current St Margaret's. This is shown in Canmore maps, where the Calf Burn meets the River Garnock, just across the river from Kilcush. And thirdly, in 1226 there was a chapel linked to Ardrossan, claimed by Kilwinning Abbey, but dedicated to St Margaret and probably the West Church, also closed when the new church opened. And this was situated just off the Salkets Road, up past Beedon's Point, heading towards Salkets in the field just before Braidwoods. A 5-star Michelin chapel, maybe. The new 1604 church was at the current St Margaret's site, and I quote, "This parish is aye been lang and wide, with clachans big and small, but till the kirk was what it is, it was nae tune at all." This church that gave origin to the town was rebuilt in 1771, and the current Gothic style building was built over this 100 years later. And incidentally, the current St Margaret's was gutted by a fire in 1951, and not by lightning as some might expect, but by heat generated from the steam organ. Something new. We can see therefore how a kirk tune sprung up, but in 1700 Dalry consisted of around half a dozen dwelling houses and a population of around 100. This increased, of course, and by the 1830s there were around 1,000 people employed in the various mills. And with the Industrial Revolution, Dalry then became a seat for business for the ironworks of Blair, with iron, coal and clay mines, limestone quarries, foundries and brickworks, and the population increased to 10,500 in 1896, and that's double the current population. It's hard to reconcile where people lived. I mean, can you just imagine there was no old or new Lynn, Upper Lynn, Timber, Blair, Netherley, St Andrews, Greenbank or Trinity? There were a good number of houses in the relatively few streets in the town though, and Dalry's population was just over 5,000, but also an equal amount in houses spread throughout the parish, with villages mentioned at Blair Works, Burnside, the Den, Drakemire, Riddens, and of course part of Glengarnock. And really surprisingly, over 300 houses in Miners' Rows from Borston to Kersland. The Carshead, Peasweep, Stoopsall and Furnace Rows accounted for almost 150 houses, and these were mostly 2 rooms, a kitchen 14 foot by 11, and a room 6 feet by 8, a garden shed, with a cupboard and a set-in bed. Conditions were poor, with outside toilets, some dry, and of course over-occupancy due to large families. Well over 1,000 people must have lived there. Inspectors finding one house with 12 people living in it, 4 adults. Well, all joke Tamsin's bairn springs to mind, or perhaps just be careful not to marry your sister. This should of course make us thankful for what we have today. The arrival of the railway, which opened a station in Dalry in 1839, revolutionised overland transport, supported industry like the blast furnaces at Blair, and there were of course various single tracks connected to the main line to transport limestone from the Jamestown, Auchenskith and Swinley's quarries. The same railway today makes Dalry a largely commuting town, although McTaggart's, Reed's, Wilson's and in particular DSM are major employers. With a £100 million investment, DSM recently secured employment for the current 300 workforce, having decided to manufacture an innovative new feed additive which will cut methane emissions from cattle by 30%. Unfortunately, gentlemen, it was not possible to identify the particular Dalry cows used for the development trials. I previously worked with Howdens at the Kingston Bridge, and one day a large mural appeared on a warehouse wall next to the motorway. People make Glasgow. Well, this replays Glasgow's miles better, and certainly, in my opinion, applies to our wee town. People make Dalry. Just look at the local groups supporting our town. The Community Council, the Parish Boundary Trust, Old Folk Cheat Committee, Bypass Arts, Station Garden, Memories, Valley Voices, and various churches supporting toddlers groups, dance classes and so on, and over 20 groups on social media. Being a commuting town, many people work from Glasgow to Ayr and beyond, and many overseas. I mentioned earlier that I grew up in the Lynn scheme, Wingate Avenue, and I began to think of folks around my age from there. John Breslin was an English teacher in a Polish university. Tom McLaughlin is a draftsman in Toronto. Brian Walker, director with a well-known drinks firm in America, to mention a few. In my own travels to the Middle East, I met Beatrice Allen from Houston Crescent and Margaret Shannon from Shaw Place, working in Dubai. And from Burnhouse, oh sorry, that's a mistake. My friend Maurice Drummond from Park Hill Drive, fiddler with company policy, was regularly on our TV screens and is a civil engineer in Toronto. From the Boys Brigade, David Fowler played for Kilmarnock and then worked in Switzerland for Seb Blatter, then of FIFA, and his sister Caroline farming in Australia. The Reed brothers from Moss Side are both vets in England, and of course many, many more. How many small towns with such a rich history can still boast over 60 shops or businesses? An attractive town centre with its own historic storyboard, Jean's charity shop, numerous family walks including the Fairy Glen where Alexander Peden once preached, Cleves Coves, home to the Covenanters, or the former Ravenscraig quarry known as the Blue Waters. I said people make Dalry, and quoted earlier a verse from the Hilltap Tune, a community recital. 64 verses by John Hodgett, superbly filmed and recited by Dalry people from local groups. Tiny Tots to Regal Court, and including our beloved Dalry Thistle, that's the blue bit. Around 150 participated in the video. Absolutely magnificent, and I doubt very much that a project like this could be done elsewhere. If you're in any doubt, just look around this club this evening at the people in front of you. Many who have performed for us, not only at Burn Suppers of course, but at varying venues throughout Ayrshire and beyond. Yes, gentlemen, people make Dalry, and we are so fortunate to have so many that contribute to our wee town. Gentlemen, will you please charge your glasses and drink a toast with me, the town and community of Dalry. Thank you.